The SAICA Biz Impact Podcast is proudly brought to you by SAICA, committed to growing impactful businesses in collaboration with our SAICA accredited practitioners. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and visit our website for more valuable resources.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the SAICA Biz Impact Podcast. I am your host, Uluncedo Mthwendwe. First thing first, I would like to thank everyone that has shared our videos that we have posted either on YouTube or either on Spotify. Thank you so much. Sharing all of that content is very important to us. And on today's episode, we have one of my favorite segments of the series that we call the Founder Story, the Founders segment. And that is where we talk to some of our members who are either CAs, accounting technicians, who are AJSAs, that have gone into the entrepreneurship route, right? And we know that is not easy, especially for some of the people that were in corporate. And today we're going to be demonstrating as well, how some of our CAs that have been in corporate, they've decided to jump into entrepreneurship. What are some of the key lessons that they've learned? What are some of the key challenges that they've had? And how they would have overcome those particular challenges. And today I have a formidable businesswoman that has been in the industry for quite some time. After 10 years in corporate, she decided to jump ship. She decided to start her own company. That is far related from what we typically know, that when you're an accountant or a CA, most of the time, you will start either an accounting firm or either an audit firm. If you're an engineer, you'll start what we call either your engineering firm. She decided to take a different route altogether. But I'm looking forward just to hear more in terms of all of that journey up until now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you Mathebe Ngwenya.
Hi.
Welcome on board. How are you?
Fine, thanks, and you. Thanks for having me.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mathebe, before we go into your story, your journey, and how you have navigated this entrepreneurship life, I would like just to give people a snippet in terms of who is Mathebe. Ladies and gentlemen, Mathebe has studied Bachelor of Accounting Science at Wits, so she's a Witsie. She is a CA by profession. She joined the financial services team at EY, Ernst & Young, during her articles and focused on the insurance industry, but managed to do bank regulation audits, which gave her banking exposure. After secondment in Boston, she got a credit analyst role at Rand Merchant Bank. Mathebe's entrepreneurial spirit conceived what we call Beauty on Tap. That's the name of the business that she runs. A venture initially aimed at connecting people with local beauty services via an app, right? Despite early challenges, her resilience transformed the app into a thriving e-commerce platform. Launched in 2016, Beauty on Tap became a voice for Black women, addressing specific skincare issues. Beauty on Tap's growth surged during the COVID-19 pandemic, navigating these challenges of predominantly white industry. Mathebe leveraged her banking connections to secure funding and credibility. And listen to this. So she facilitated introductions that helped her gain foothold in the prestigious locations like Mall of Africa. In 2023, she was recognized as one of Telkom Phenomenal 10, celebrating women in the ICT sector. I'm not going to go more. The CV is quite long, but let me just stop right there. Mathebe, thank you as well for joining us again.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to have this discussion with you in terms of the journey with Beauty on Tap. But let's take it way back from the beginning. You are in corporate.
Yes.
More than 10 years experience. I'm sure you can see that, okay, I'm not far from being an executive. You are in the finance industry. The bonuses, I know they're very good. That industry, if you guys have done well. After some time, you decide to say, you know what, I've had this. I've been in the game. I will follow my passion, which is entrepreneurship. I, as Luncedo, I'm sitting here thinking that decision to say, I will jump ship and start my business would have come with lots of sacrifices. I'm sure either your bond, or your cars, the lifestyle, holidays, and all of that. But can you tell me that defining moment that you had where you said, you know what, I am going into entrepreneurship?
Thank you. So I think as CAs or, accounting practitioners would know, we take calculated risks. It's not just a decision that you make on a whim and decide like, oh, actually now I'm going to just resign.
Yeah.
So, it was just years of sitting and thinking and, kind of calculating, am I actually ready for this jump? Psychologically, financially as well. And on a needs basis, does my business actually need me to be there every single day versus do I hire a team and continue working and taking a salary from the bank versus my business? So there was a lot of thought and years of thinking that went into it. And of course, you said the business kind of grew during COVID.
Correct. Yeah.
But only 2 years after that growth did I then decide that actually it's time to jump ship. And the decision kind of came when I was an EA. I was EA to the CEO of the bank, and with EA roles, executive assistant roles, you rotate. You have to just do it for 2 years. It's not a permanent position. And it was time to roll off that role. And I was looking at other roles and there was nothing I was passionate about. I was just like, my passion for banking is just gone now. Like,
you've reached that point.
Yeah, there's nothing left for me here. And before I was just still so curious and willing to jump into new roles. But I remember in December 2021, when I was interviewing for different roles, I was just like, I don't even want any of these roles.
Energy was no longer there.
I was like, I'm not anticipating a phone call saying you got the role. And that's when I kind of, called my mom and said, Mom, I'm thinking of resigning. What do you think? And she was like, I think you're ready. You can take the leap now. So there's a lot of thought process, and just the passion for banking wasn't there anymore. I was just more passionate about my business. And luckily I had savings, and the business was also growing at a point where it could sustain my lifestyle as well.
Yeah. So you had a side hustle.
Yes.
Right. And let's talk about that. There's so many professionals that want to jump ship and run their businesses full time.
Yeah.
Right. And you're saying you didn't just jump for the sake of.
Yeah.
You had something that was running on the side for quite some time that actually got to a point where you said, okay, now I am ready. But talk to me about some of the challenges that you had to go through while you are working full-time. That is an executive role because it demands each and every of your second during the day. And then you still have the side hustle on the side.
Yeah. Another thing that kind of contributed to that decision of jumping was my mental health. My brain was just so stretched, like it was never resting. I remember just before I'd sleep, I'd always have this dream where I'm falling off a cliff. And my coach was like, it's because your brain is constantly active. Like even when you're trying to sleep, it's just running. And I just thought, this isn't healthy. This doesn't seem normal anymore, because during the day I was working and I worked in this, role where the CEO, if he asks you for something at 9 p.m.,
you have
you have to deliver it. So I was on call till like 9 p.m. during the week, and then having to pack orders between 9, and whatever time I sleep or wake up early to finish them off. So it just became too demanding. My social life just took a knock. Weekends I was busy working. So there were just a lot of sacrifices from a time perspective. Even a monetary perspective, when you're side hustling, you're bootstrapping, you're taking your salary, you're plugging it into the business to grow it as well. So it was just a lot of sacrifices from my perspective to keep the side hustle running, especially from a time perspective. And so when that opportunity to jump came, I also considered my mental health, to say I need to consider that my brain needs to rest, needs some air as well. And I can't keep up this growing business as well as this very demanding role.
Yeah. And that was during COVID. And I think most people, that's when mental health started to take a toll.
Yes.
And so many people. Now, the energy now, during that period, there's so much uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
And how do you get to that point? It's okay, it's 2020, it's 2021, it's 2022. You listen to the news, the markets are going down, people are losing jobs, disposable income for people is reducing. And you are in the business, it's beauty and wellness. Where did you get the strength to say, you know what, this will work? Because it's not a basic need per se to a certain extent. There's a bit of luxury that is there. People can just survive with just smaller aspects within. Where did you get that edge or the confidence or the drive or the certainty that this will work now?
So I think during COVID, the thing that I did where my CA brain kind of clicked in, or maybe it was my credit analyst brain, was that I saw there was this huge pickup in self-care and people at home doing skincare because they were bored, and hair care, braiding their own hair. But I also realized that anything that picks up has to come down at a point. Like there's going to be a point where it fluctuates. And so I had to sit and think, what is differentiating beauty on tap in this market? Because somebody can go to a competitor, walk into a shopping center and buy the same products. So for me, the thing that I used to differentiate us was really fast delivery, because at the time it was only e-commerce. And so we just had super fast delivery where people were getting their orders the same day, the next day, if they were like in Cape Town or Durban. So people would find that, actually, instead of going to the shops, let me just order on Beauty on Tap. It's going to get here today anyways. So that efficiency was really important. And then in 2021, I also took a decision to launch in-house brands. So that's when we launched Pastry Skincare, which has become a household brand in the skincare market as well, the local market. So Pastry was very different as well. It offered a different kind of offering to the market, and it also focused on more South African concerns, African skincare concerns, like hyperpigmentation on your body. So I think having our own brand as well as that efficiency from a tech perspective helped lock customers in, and then kind of lended brand sustainability to Beauty on Tap as well, to make it sure that today we're still operating and growing.
You are trained in finance.
Yes.
Right? As I said, most professionals would typically bet on themselves using their skill. Now, from banking, insurance, to beauty and wellness.
Yes.
Again, how did you get to be so confident that you're not trained in terms of beauty, the products, the chemicals and all of that? That is far off from the way you were trained. Just share the insights around that, because there's so many people that will say, I don't want to do what I'm trained on. I want to do something different. However, I don't know the industry that much, or even the value chain of the industry thereof that I want to venture in. So your experience now, you as a finance professional, getting into the beauty and wellness space?
So I think for me it was two things. So growing up, I was always more of a creative child. So I wanted to be a fashion designer, and my mom was like, no, you're going to do accounting. So I think I just went back to my passion, which is creating. And just, I think it's the right side of the brain, right? It's this way, which is the more creative side. So I've always had a creative edge to me. And I think marketing is just something that comes very naturally to me, and I really enjoy it. I love creating content or campaigns that speak to people, because I love people as well, and understanding them, understanding how to speak to them easier and positioning things easier to them. So I think my passion for marketing and communication clearly pushed me also to like differentiate the brand in that way. Let's market differently and be really dynamic with our marketing. So that really, really helped. But I also think as a CA, as an analyst and a banker, you constantly have this curiosity to learn. And I think just because I was an analyst and learning industries like automotive and, diversified industrials through the work I was doing, you just gain this curiosity to constantly learn and get more information. So even though I was going into an industry that I didn't know at all, that curiosity to just constantly learn and learn about ingredients, formulation, brand positioning, what brands are out there, what differentiates one brand to another in terms of beauty, really kind of like bit at me, and it's kind of what keeps me going every day. So I absolutely love reading. I love doing research. I love understanding formulation as well. And a lot of people ask me, how do you formulate pastry if, I'm just like, I just know ingredients. I know what to put together and what will work. And then obviously we work with professional formulators who then say this will work or won't work.
You touched on two aspects there. And maybe let me take this other aspect. You spoke about also your passion around marketing. and branding. Traditionally, of course, there will be stereotypes around accountants, and I think we are proving that all of those
That's
stereotypes.
wrong.
That's wrong. All right, you've built a very good, solid presence online. You've built a very good brand as an individual, also for the business. Take me through that journey, because that is something for other finance professionals. It's either difficult to put yourself out there, or it requires a lot of time to even invest so much time on marketing. And you did that without really investing or spending so much around it. Your thinking process around building the brands for you as an individual and for the business.
So I think, like, I was helping my little brother start a brand the other day, and he was just like, how did you do it with pastry and beauty on TApp? And I said, I put so much of myself into it as well. And not myself as in like my full personality, but I put what I'm passionate about, my passion for people, into the brand as well.
Yeah.
And the one thing you'll see with both brands is that they're very educational. Like if you get onto the Beauty on TApp page, you'll see that it's all about educating people about skincare and ingredients. And I'm not a forceful person, so I'm not throwing products on people to say, buy, buy, buy. I'm more saying, here's information at your disposal. How you use it then is up to you. If you want to walk into our store and explore this ingredient or this product, we're leaving the decision up to you then. And I think that's more of my personalities. I'm not an aggressive person. I'm more a person who will share information with someone and then say, let the decision be yours. So I think the way that we've marketed, I've lent a bit of my personality into it, but not too much of it, because I don't want the brand to be so dependent on who I am as a person.
Correct.
But things like honesty and transparency, openness, you know, clear lines of communication. I remember when I was looking at how other e-commerce stores communicate with customers and how customers can log complaints. The one thing I noticed is that the big e-commerce stores didn't have a phone number on their websites because they don't want people calling them, you know. And I was like, guys, no matter what, if we get calls the whole day from people, let's just be open and transparent. So I think that transparency has also kind of lent credence to the brand and made it more trustworthy and honest. And then from my own personal perspective, I think I've shared my journey a lot, honestly. I've shared the ups and downs. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. I share a lot of myself with people. I share my passions. I love fashion, I love shoes. You know, if I go do my hair, I say, come do my hair with me. So I let people into my life, but not too much into my life. Like I saw people were Googling who my husband is. And I was just like, how people are so curious.
People are so much interested.
I'm like, I share so much already. So I share a lot about myself on social media, and I always say to people, I'm actually like a funny person. Like I'm really funny. I'm not like comedian funny, but
you've got that dry sense of humor.
I've got your personality. Exactly. So you know, I think people enjoy that about me. That I am just myself. I'm not trying to be pretentious. Like, oh, I'm a business owner of a beauty brand. I'm still a very chilled person.
But we need to take this to a unicorn status. Right, where it becomes $1 billion business.
I mean, it's on its way, because I mean, the business is self-funded. Like, correct, you know, we got funding once for our first store from our bankers. And since then, every store that we've opened has just been through growth, through sales. So I always say that Beauty on TAP's customers are literally growing the brand. So we'll get there. I'm not rushing to get there quickly. I've seen a lot of companies get that unicorn status and then just falter. I always say, don't grow too fast. Don't let the company run away from you, like the controls and the processes and everything. Try feed your market gradually and within control.
Let's talk about, you spoke about the funding within the first phase of you having your first physical store. How did you leverage with the relationships that you had previously from either previous employers where you worked before during article days and all of that, to get to be in a position where you are funded? I think funding in South Africa is something that most SMEs are struggling with, where most people are saying, we are not getting funding. From your side, what lessons did you learn through that process of doing the capital raising?
So as I was in capital raising, it was purely like a loan, and we were really lucky. Like FNB still had like a COVID fund where the interest rates were like not low, but like much lower than a normal interest rate. And so at the time we wanted funding for our store, we just qualified for that COVID growth fund.
Okay.
It was literally closing that same week. So our banker was like, listen, this fund is still available. Do you guys want to access a loan from this fund? And I was like 100%. The interest, I think, was 13%. So that's the funding that we got, and that funded half our store. I also had savings. And the thing I said about growing slowly and not rushing to grow, I know a lot of businesses want to raise 20 million rand to get to that unicorn status within 1 year of operating. And for us, with getting that loan, it's that we already had a track record. Like, they could see the e-commerce growth for like 8 years, you know. They could see that it was a very frugal business. We were side hustling. I wasn't drawing a big salary. So FNB trusted the journey. The cash flows were there. The history was there. So it was easy for them to then fund the business. And I think because I was a former group employee, it was also like, we trust this person because I understood a lot of the metrics and the interest I could negotiate. So my financial understanding was also easy for them to say she knows what she's talking about. And I was a credit analyst, so I knew exactly what they were looking for when they asked for financial statements and such. So I'm not saying I did something to the financial statements. I'm just saying, like, you know, even just going into raising that capital, I knew what to focus on, and my biggest focus is cash flows and making sure that those are sound in the business.
So you're talking about discipline, and that is something that is very difficult, especially when you have employment, right? You have a lifestyle, and you have a side business. Right? How did you maintain or keep that discipline where you are saying, I will keep this business, I'm not going to dent it with so much that it will fund my lifestyle? Because that is a trap that most people usually fall in. Then when they decide to jump, yes, they've been doing this for the past 3, 4, 5 years. But when you look at the numbers really talk to funding either the lifestyle of that particular entrepreneur, and where now capital raising becomes difficult, the discipline around that.
I find entrepreneurs generally are very frugal people. It's really rare that you find an entrepreneur who just blows money fast. I mean, you hear stories where people get funding and they go buy a Ferrari and whatever else they do. But I mean, for me, my mom always says I'm a very stingy person. She's always just like, oh my gosh, you won't even buy a new pair of jeans. That's how stingy you are. So I just think I've always lived frugally, and maybe it's the accounting, you know, and CA route that you take. They say CAs are very stingy people. So I've always just been very financially disciplined in my own life and in my own personal respect, that I think I carried that over into my business. And when you work for a big corporate that's so cost conscious and constantly talking about costs and stuff.
You see this all the time.
You see this all the time.
It
becomes a pattern, and you start seeing like, oh, these are the things that they're cutting costs on. You know, financial efficiency, what does that look like in my own business? So I think just from being a financially disciplined person, you know, we pay well, our salaries are really good, they're above market. So I also come from a background in a company where they had a very lean team, but people worked really hard. So at Beauty on Tap, it's a very lean team, but the team is so high performance and effective that we can pay people well, but have a small, tight-knit team. So I think just my personal life and what I've journeyed through in terms of financing, and I mean, my mom always, you know, she told me my first job at EY, she was like, even if you're taking home 7,000, try put something away, like try save at least something from your salary every single month.
Before you get exposed to
from
so
the
much
beginning.
money.
And she was like, it should be a debit order that goes off your account like an expense, and every single year you should increase those savings. And you know, I've been doing that since my articles. That expense comes off as a debit order. So just that financial discipline from life lessons from my mom and just seeing how it works in my own life to working for a corporate where they're cost conscious has also just helped me build a business that's very financially disciplined.
What are some of the key skills that you can say as a CA? Now you've had to apply to this business that is in a different industry altogether. And I like what you've done, because most of the time, most people would start businesses betting on themselves in terms of their skills or what they're being trained on. Now you're coming into the beauty industry altogether. Village is different. The lingo is different altogether. So what are some of the key skills you can say you've taken from that experience as a CA, and then you said, this is how I'm going to run my business, even though it's in the different industry altogether?
Yeah, so I think what I learned from banking and even at EY through articles is there's two components to business growth. There's top line growth, which is revenue growth, and then there's keeping costs as low as possible. So from a revenue perspective, you then have to look at controls, like, obviously there's marketing, but even then from a controls perspective, it's your stock. Am I losing stock? Is there stock leakages and so on? And that's when you start seeing like, those stock counts that I had to do, at year end in my first year of articles really helped, because you have to keep your eye on stock and say, why are we losing so much stock? Is there stock efficiency? Is stock priced well? A lot of entrepreneurs, when I ask them, how did you price your product? It's just like bizarre. It's like they just said, I bought it for 100 Rand, so I'm selling it for 150, but they don't understand that there's these...
The overheads as well that you need to consider.
Overheads, there's marketing, there's storage costs, there's rent, there's your salary that you have to build into your selling price. So little things like that are just so important and really just speak to that cost, that revenue growth. Then of course on the cost efficiency side, there's controls and processes. And making sure that those work efficiently. And I bang on about processes every single day with my team. So I always just laugh and say that I can't believe that things that I learned in articles so long ago are the most important thing that I need in my business today. Because obviously in banking, I did company analysis and so on, but those lessons I learned in my early days have been so important in driving growth for my business. So those controls and how we test controls and, seeing failures and saying, how can we actually put a control in place to make sure this doesn't happen again is really important.
It's amazing how the dots connect in the long run. When you're in that phase, everything just appears to be so administrative. You don't see either the bigger picture, but after some time, you become grateful of all of those... Everything,
like bank recons. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to I roll bank recons. And now I'm like, guys, we have to do a bank recon every week, to make sure everything is balancing. So it all it's a full circle. It all comes together at the end.
What have you learned, or what are some of the biggest challenges then that you've had to face? I mean, with the e-commerce side of things. You've got physical, then you've got e-commerce. And I'm sure you've started to export as well to out of South Africa. But what are some of the biggest challenges that you have picked up around your business, especially in terms of moving the products out of the country?
So e-commerce as a business, so brick and mortar retail is much harder than e-commerce. It's just a different, I just find it very different. I think when you start scaling and you have to now start doing forecasts on stock and how much do I need on this shelf versus the store, what's popular here, what's popular there, that's really, really hard. And just customer service is difficult. I am so pedantic about customer service. So that's also really difficult in a walk-in store versus e-commerce. It's somebody interacting with a computer. Order and your Audis, unless there's an order issue. So retail is much harder, walk-in retail. But e-commerce, I think the one thing that was really difficult in South Africa was, and it's still difficult actually, is cheap shipping fees. So a lot of it has been privatized because, post office, sorry. And whereas in countries like the United States, they use their national posting services, so the shipping fees are so much lower. And in South Africa, we have customers complaining, why must I pay 100 Rand for shipping? And it's like, we're actually subsidizing your shipping fee because it's much higher. So I think that's a really big challenge for e-commerce. And the one thing that's really hard is, we're seeing growth in a lot of international orders. But the shipping fees are just so, I was speaking to one of our shippers yesterday and I was just like, your fees are so high. And it's a geographic thing. South Africa is all the way at the bottom of the world. You never think of that. It's like, we're all the way at the bottom and everything has to go up and far. So our shipping fees are much higher. Even if you're shipping from somewhere else into SA, it's just very high. And a lot of African countries want to buy from us, but seemingly it's more expensive to ship to Nigeria than it is to the United States.
That talks a lot about the infrastructure than we have in the continent.
100%.
Right? Yeah?
So I think as South Africa, I've always said South Africa can be an e-commerce hub if we can get some kind of subsidies for shipping, or if government can come to the party in terms of helping with that. But there's so many people who are interested in buying from us on the continent, but they just like, it's just too expensive. So little things like that are a challenge. But I think the private sector has helped a bit in terms of local deliveries and stuff. And also I think companies like Checker 60 have made digital buying so fun and savvy and much easier and trustworthy that it's making people more comfortable with digital buying. So there've been challenges, but it's slowly coming together.
With what you're saying is very important, especially with the policymakers. If the policymakers are listening, that is a very important point that you are raising, because that is the cost of doing business in Africa.
100%.
That it is more expensive to do business in Africa compared to do business with other international markets, either Europe or Asia or North America thereof. We're hosting G20, by the way.
Oh, nice.
We're hosting G20 in September. So we're hoping that such ideas like the one that you have right now, such issues are tabled so that we are able as an African continent to be able to trade each other. You know, I know that there's African continental free trade agreements that are coming on board. Those are the things that they actually have to talk to. But let's talk about scaling.
Yes.
You do your business as a side hustle, number of years. You get into it full time, right? Without wasting any time, you get into bricks and mortar.
Yes.
Right? Without wasting any time, you expand from all of Africa. Where are you now?
Menlyn and Gateway. And then we have another one coming in May.
All right. Now, take me through that phase. How do you scale now from having one store, right, to move to another store, to move to another province? What are some of the biggest challenges that you face there? Because people, they think that it's easy. Oh, okay. Beauty and TApp is growing. You know? However, there are certain challenges that you're dealing with at the back. How tough has it been for you, or how easy has it been for you?
Yeah, so I mean, you spoke about how I tapped into my networks, banking networks, to open stores and to get a foothold. So I mean, at the beginning, I thought it would be easy. Like, I have this e-commerce store that's existed and it's grown during COVID.
The numbers are there.
The numbers are there. There's the financials. It's all there. But getting space in malls was really hard, and having to tap into networks that I have to get that space and to have, because I mean, I was in the property credit team at RMB. So I was just like, hey guys, please help me get space at Mall of Africa. And they sent an email for me to introduce me, and it just became easier after that. So the fact that I had that network and somebody out there might not have that network just speaks to, you know, how difficult it is as well. So that was really hard. And then even after opening Mall of Africa and having that track record, to get into Menlyn was also really hard. And Mall of Africa had to send an email for us to say, this is a good tenant, they're doing well, please let them into Menlyn. And eventually, I think when people saw both stores open, then we had Gateway come to us and say, do you want to open a store? And even our next store, that mall came to us to say, please open a store.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I think at the end, it kind of worked out, but it was a really difficult slog at the beginning. And just self-funding expansion is difficult. You have to be very strict with cash flow during that period. Lucky for us, our stores pay themselves off pretty quickly. That's why we're able to then go on to the next one. And it's just only because we have suppliers that are just so nice to us and want the story to unfold the way it is. You know, when you say, listen, I can't pay you this month, can I delay it to next month? They just like pay what you can over the next period. So
that's fantastic.
Just renegotiating those terms has also been important. And the one thing I learned with stores is every market is different. What people are buying in Midrand and Mall of Africa.
Different in Durban. It's a different market altogether.
Versus Pretoria even. Pretoria is just so different to Mall of Africa. And Durban is just completely different. It's just like, oh wow, all the stores have a completely different market. So then, you know, that's why I said stock forecasting has to be so different, because you can't just use a blanket approach to every store. Every store has to be considered differently. So it's just been such an interesting lessons that we've learned. as well as I think the most important lesson, and this is for e-commerce businesses that are tinkering with the idea of brick and mortar. We thought if we open stores, our e-commerce is going to die and no one is going to shop, online anymore. They'll go in store. But we realized that having a retail store actually builds more brand presence, number one, and makes you more trustworthy. So then people are like, oh, actually, I can trust this e-commerce store. So as you open more stores, your e-commerce also kind of starts to grow a bit. So people shouldn't think that if they open stores, the e-commerce will die. It just helps build your brand a lot more.
That's fantastic. You mentioned something very important at the beginning, the power of networks. Let's talk about the power of building relationships while you're still in corporate.
Yes.
And the impact that it has now when you start to become an entrepreneur, all right? Please share your experience around that.
So something I learned very quickly in corporate is don't be shy to put your hand up.
Okay.
If they ask you to be in the social committee, just be like, okay, fine, I'll be in the social committee.
Yeah.
And I always tell young people, like, social events, go to social events. That's when you meet senior management. That's when they let their tie loose and they want to meet, young people at the organization, and
they're shy. They want to go home. No one wants to go to all of these functions.
No, that's when senior people are really like just at their most relaxed and just want to have a good time,
Okay.
So I always tell young people, like, go to social events. Like, that's when the CEOs are there and you can go meet them. Right. So I always say that be social. Put your hands up for extra work. Like, I used to put my hands up for reports and stuff. And the one thing I did is I emceed the Strat conference at work with a friend, and that just got my name out there. Like, people were like, oh yeah, you're the girl that emceed the conference, and getting roles after that was so easy because I was just so familiar to some managers and senior leadership. So even when I got the EA role, the CEO was like, oh, you emceed the...
I've seen you before.
I've seen you before.
So there's a bit of credibility that has been built now.
Exactly, and then you have to then speak to your technical skills then, but from a social perspective, then they trust you, they know you already. It's not like a surprise, So those networks really helped, and just then getting to those positions and mingling with people at that level. Like I was sitting with execs in meetings from a R&B level, first round level, from an F&B level. I was speaking to people, and then you get to go to events where you meet other people. And also just joining organizations, AWCA, APSIP. If SAICA has events, go to those events as well. That's where you really meet people who can help connect you. So all of that just works in your favor at the end of the day. Networking doesn't mean speaking to your team. It also means, within the organization, it also means getting your name out within other organizations that you can join, the professional organizations you can join.
Then that is the power of relationships and network.
Yes.
Now there's another element, which is mentorship.
Yes.
Right. Most entrepreneurs will either have a challenge to identify someone who can mentor them, either it's from work or it's from outside, or it's just approaching someone or someone who wants to get into the beauty and wellness industry. How do I approach Mathebe via social media and say, can you please be my mentor? She's very busy. She's never available. From your journey, can you take us through about the power of mentorship that you have had to go through as well?
People are going to be like, we DM her, she won't mentor, but I explain why I don't mentor right now. So I've never had a formal mentor.
Okay.
I've never had a formal mentor. I've never had somebody I meet up with every quarter and have a coffee with. I think some people don't even know they're my mentor. Like, I always just handpick people and say, this person's journey I'm going to follow. I'm going to go for coffee with this person once. I'm going to have this person on my WhatsApp. So even when I worked at R&B, there were so many senior people who I used to speak to. I'd have their numbers. I'd just walk into their offices. Like, Emery's the CEO of R&B. I used to walk into Emery's office and be like, hey, Em, can I just have a quick chat with you? And she'd be like, sure, So she was mentoring me from a distance. She didn't even know that she was my mentor. But I mean, I'd ask questions about her story. How did she get to where she is, and just touch base with her like once a year. So I know a lot of people like formal mentorship, but there's so much power in informal mentorships and just looking at somebody from a distance, reading books, reading articles people write, reading how people build their brands as well. I'm always listening to podcasts on other beauty founders and how they build their brands up. So distant mentorship for me always works, as well as coaching. I was actually doing a talk the other day and we spoke about how people don't know the value of coaching, professional coaching, executive coaching. So having a coach is like having a professional therapist.
It's the best.
It's the best.
Right?
It's literally the
you have
best.
that person to talk to without being judged.
Without being judged, and the person has your best interests at heart and they really give you advice that can completely just pivot and change your career. So coaching, consider coaching instead of mentorship. And then I said, I don't mentor yet because I don't have the time, as you said, and I don't feel like I can pour into someone as much as I would want to if I did it now. So I'm always open to taking a coffee with someone. If somebody says to me, can I meet you for a coffee? I'm always like, sure, we can do a coffee. So I don't formally mentor someone, like check in, like, hey, how are those goals going? I'm like, oh my gosh, I still have my own goals and things I need to do. So I'm always open to coffees and stuff. But right now I don't feel like I'm the perfect mentor.
Right. That makes sense. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to face as a business, right, the past 5 years? COVID has been a major turning point for so many businesses. But also, as you've said, it goes up, it goes down, right? So from your journey, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced as a business, and how did you overcome those challenges?
So I think beauty on tap is much easier to run than pastry. Pastry is a manufacturing business. It's just a very different beast. And with manufacturing comes quality issues, and it's skincare. It comes out differently. The color comes out differently every run. The texture comes out differently. We launched a really, really great sunscreen. And the first packaging we had just didn't work. We didn't test it properly. It didn't work. Then we had to change the packaging to tubes. Then just because of the active ingredients in that tube, the sunscreen was becoming watery. Then it was just like a mess.
The cost involved in all of this process, right?
You're recalling products from stores and saying, we need to change packaging, please discard this packaging, do tubes. Oh no, the tubes aren't working, please discard that, let's try something else. So pastry has just been a huge challenge, especially with just learning that, certain ingredients need certain packaging. This is how we get texture and viscosity right. And I think because we've grown so fast as pastry with the manufacturer as well, we're all learning at the same time. But pastry is just a completely different beast. Even Bare Skincare, we have another brand called Bare. Just completely different beasts, but we're learning every day. Beauty on tap, I think even today, the biggest challenge is just even when you call on big brands, they might not want to list with you. And it's just like, why? Why? And learning that you just still need to grow, that lesson, okay, we're not there yet, but we can keep going, is a hard lesson to face, but you take it in your stride.
What are some of the key aspects that you look at for one to be able to list on Beauty on Tap? Because I'm sure there's so many people that have their own products that they've done at home and they're like, okay, can we please list it? But what are some of the key components that you look at, or key quality areas that you are saying, as a business, not that we don't want to take so many products to list on our platform, but however, we are strategically positioned in this area and all of that. But what do you look at,
So our core is putting small businesses at the forefront. So I think even when you read my bio, that's what we do. Small local businesses is what we want to promote.
Fantastic.
But we leverage the big brands to make sure people walk into the store and then see the smaller brands and buy them as well. And so we've just been very strict on how your product is packaged. Are you packaged according to regulations? So South African health regulation, you have to have certain things on your packaging, like ingredients, expiry dates, and so on. So we look at the basics of that. we look at formulations.
Yeah.
Is your product offering something different to the market? Because sometimes we let brands in and they just don't sell. And it's better for us to give feedback upfront to say maybe differentiate your product a bit just to get you into the store and then so people can actually buy as well. A lot of brands think if you're in a beauty on TApp or even in any big retailer, you're going to sell automatically.
No. You still have to do marketing.
You still have to do
product
marketing.
Still has to be known.
Sell, yeah. And then, of course, marketing. We analyze your marketing strategy. We ask you what your strategy is. We go onto your social pages, your website, everything. We look at what you've done to grow your brand as well. And you can't just rely on us to grow your brand. So there's a lot of stuff that we look at, and our listing team is very strict. I see people just DM me sometimes to bypass. And I'm like, I have a team for that. I don't make those decisions. I only make it once they've approved and shortlist. Then I say, okay, this one, this one, this one. But we have a very stringent listing process, as well as it shouldn't be a harmful product.
Yeah. I've got lots of people, by the way, that said, can you please introduce me to her, please?
Okay. Bring them on. I tell them I'm strict.
No, they'll watch this episode. They will hear from you.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of how you operate. But in terms of some of the aspiring entrepreneurs, as I said, you've built a very strong presence online. It looks easy. It looks floating very well. And I'm sure behind the scenes, there's a lot that is moving. What would be your advice to someone who wants to get into an industry that is completely unrelated to what they've been trained on?
I think the one thing that people battle with is they want to innovate. And to some people, innovation means something new and fresh, you know, like I need a new product that's going to knock people's socks off, or an app that's going to be so dynamic. And sometimes going into an industry is just going in and just saying, what are the gaps? What are the gaps in this industry that I can fill? What can I do better within this industry? So if you want to go into an industry that you're unfamiliar with, just don't want to reshape the industry. Look at it and say, what are the little gaps that I can fill here, and how can I differentiate myself? And then just take your time. Like, I think that's what's so important. So many people just want to do it fast. I think I'm still young. I'm 37. I think I'm still young for the kind of business I've built. And I started when I was 27. So I think I'm still young.
They say life starts at 40.
We'll see. We'll see. I still have some time before I get there. But just take your time, you know. Your story doesn't have to be big when you're young. It can be big when you're 50. It can, you know, when I see a lot of founders and when their businesses just grew, it's people who are still in their 40s. So don't rush the process. You can grow slowly. I think us growing gradually has really helped us as well. It hasn't been rushed, you know. So take it slow and understand it. I always say it's so important as an entrepreneur to do everything yourself at the beginning. Like, I was packing, accounting, marketing, everything at the beginning. So now that I have teams, I can lend something into those teams as well and advise them.
Because you understand the process.
The entire process. Yeah, there's nothing in... I don't understand the point of sale machines. That's the only thing I don't understand. But everything else, so when I see customers and they're like, please help me, I'm like, girl,
can someone please help?
Can someone please come help here? That's the only thing in the business that I don't understand. But I know everything else in the business, so I can pick up quickly that there's something that's gone wrong here. So do everything yourself at the beginning, and then only introduce people once you've understood that process yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wish I can continue this conversation for the next 2-3 hours. But my biggest lesson that I'm learning from you, Mathebe, is it takes time. It's a process. Don't rush to see the results now. For her to be where she's at today, it has taken,
10 years.
Over, a decade in it. And you're still not yet where you want to be at. But it's still a journey. So it takes time. And again, before you jump, it's important that you do those analysis, I think, that you spoke about, have that credit mindset, have the risk management principles at the back, so that it is not something that will drive you to depression at the end of the day. But the journey, I know, is not easy. Mathebe, so many people will be interested to really get to know more about you as an individual, Also, they're going to be interested to really learn more about Beauty on Tap. In terms of all the platforms, where can they get the products? Can you please share with us in terms of all the platforms where you can be reached on?
Okay, so our website is shopbeautiontapp.co.za.
Okay.
And then our retail stores are at Mall of Africa, Menlyn, and Gateway. And we opening in Fourways. I'll reveal it's Fourways Mall pretty soon. And then Pastry Skincare is pastry_skincare. And Beauty on Tap is at Beauty on Tap on all social media platforms. Bare Skincare is B_AIR_skincare on all platforms. And for me personally, it's Mathebe Ngwenya on all platforms. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn as well.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been very, very fruitful. I hope that people have learned. We are closing the show, ladies and gentlemen. And my request is please share the podcast, share some of the snippets with most of the people that want to jump into entrepreneurship, that are in corporate. This episode will actually share the glimpse in terms of what it takes and some of the challenges that one has to be ready to deal with. From our side, we're hoping to see you on the next episode. Please don't forget to subscribe, to like on YouTube. We're on also Spotify. We are on X. We're on all platforms that SAICA has, from LinkedIn to their website as well. See you on the next one.
The SAICA Biz Impact Podcast is proudly brought to you by SAICA, committed to growing impactful businesses in collaboration with our SAICA accredited practitioners. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and visit our website for more valuable resources.